light the candle. Somebody play some dramatic music. Thank you so much. All right, what kind of morning do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be a good morning? All right, well, we'll find out. War. Oh, geez. That is not a good way to start the day. What do you think about this afternoon, though? Do you think it'll be good? Good afternoon? All right, maybe there'll be some peace. Kill, okay. The evening? Any hopes? Any hopes for evening, maybe? Embrace. Oh, that's good. It'll be resolved by the night. Just persevere, guys. Persevere. All right. Don't worry, we'll be using our little wheel a few more times. So, welcome to, I think it's week 9 of our class on Ecclesiastes, and we're going to be in Ecclesiastes 9 this morning. Let me find that. If you don't know where Ecclesiastes is in your Bible, find Psalms, that's basically in the middle, and then go a couple books to the right. It's the book after Proverbs, right before Song of Songs. So, Ecclesiastes 9. And we will pray. Our Father, we want your name to be glorified in our midst, in our minds, in our hearts. Glorify your name. In the nations, glorify your name. And we know that's done when you are seen and savored. So be merciful to us, and let us, with our eyes, with our hearts, let us see you and behold your glory and your power and your beauty, and give us satisfaction in that sight. So now, as we talk about your word, give us holy thoughts, holy words, holy ears to listen, and transform us into your likeness. Amen. All right. Let's see. So today's class, the title of today's class is Wisdom and the Illusion of Control. Wisdom and the illusion of control. I have some friends up here, a wise man, a foolish man, a righteous man, a wicked man. It could be a wise woman, a foolish woman, a righteous woman, a wicked woman, a wise child, a foolish child, a righteous. But they're wise, fools, righteous, and wicked, and they're going somewhere in life. We'll find out where they're going, and how much control they have over that destiny. The question that I want us to ponder this morning, we've been in Ecclesiastes obviously quite a bit, and thinking through some of the big questions of Ecclesiastes. I want us to think about a question even bigger, maybe, in a sense, than Ecclesiastes, though I would say maybe the book's asking this question. The question I want us to ponder today is, what is the purpose of wisdom? What's the purpose? Like, why do you want it? Or do you want it? I think you do. What's the purpose? So, what is Proverbs trying to teach us? What is Ecclesiastes trying to teach us? What's Job trying to teach us? What's the purpose of the wisdom that's in Christ that we've talked about? Colossians says all the treasures of wisdom are hidden in Jesus. What's the purpose of having any wisdom? So that's the big question. We're going to end up there later, so if you can keep that in your mind, keep that there. And today our class is going to be a guided discussion on Ecclesiastes 9. So I have 10 questions for us, and Lord willing, we will get through half of those at least. So, question number 1 for the gang. Have you ever been frustrated by something in life that didn't work the way you thought it should? Have you ever been frustrated in life by something that didn't work the way it should? Now, that's a yes or no question. So on 3, you can answer my question. 1, 2, 3. Yes. What? Are you serious? I wasn't expecting that. I thought I might hear a couple. No. All right, so tell me some things that in life that haven't worked the way you thought they should work. Any examples? Yes. Babies sleeping through the night. You think that they should sleep. You think that's how it should happen. And it didn't happen that way? Wow. What kind of baby you have? I mean, our 3 are just every night, the second we put them down, out, and they wait until we come and wake them up, Yeah. Okay, babies, I think, yes. Car insurance when somebody hits you. Yeah, it doesn't work the way you think it should. Yeah, as quickly as you'd like. There's just all these things, and yeah, it's all that fine print that you didn't read that you said, I agree to, which is like, basically, we can do whatever we want on whatever timetable we want. And you're thinking, I thought I paid you to work for me. And they're like, no, the joke's on you. You paid me, so you can work for me. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Yeah, cars just in general don't work the way they should in our minds, right? Yeah.
Chronic illnesses in your body not working the way it should.
Chronic illness. All right, describe why that doesn't work the way that you think it should.
Your body not working the way it should.
Yeah. Yeah, you're thinking, so like I woke up today with a cold, so I feel like kind of a little bit achy and all that. And there's this feeling the whole morning of, this is not the way I should feel. Like, at least I don't think, And obviously chronic illness, when this is just all the time, your body's not working the way it should. Now it's interesting, how do we know the way it should work? But I think there's an internal perception that we have of that. But it's like, this is not the way it should be. And it didn't happen the way I wanted it. We got another one back here, Jen.
It surprised me that I had to teach Jake normal common sense things. When you answer the phone, you have to wait and then say hello. That kind of thing.
So answer the phone, you have to wait.
When he answers the phone, he has to say hello.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one, right? So the things, so we have this phrase, I love it. There's this phrase that we say, common sense, which are things the way they should, like these things just work the way they should work, and everybody kind of gets it, right? And I love that illustration. So, if somebody called me on the phone, why is it, maybe he's thinking that it should be a different way. Like, I did the little swipe to answer the phone, and I just go, I picked up, right? Like, that's, maybe Jake is tuned into something else, Jake, you're with it, dude. So, it's interesting, right? Let's do one more, yeah. Pets.
Cats and dogs. They shouldn't act the way we want them to act.
Cats and dogs should act the way we want them to act. Now, we could just say that. All human beings. So if you really want to know how this is, you guys should act the way I think you should act. Like, I have it figured out, and if you want any advice, you can come to me and I'll tell you how you should live. Like, right, that's the perception we have in our minds. This is the interesting thing about the word should. So there's some things that I think we have a sense of should because they're divinely revealed. But then there's a lot of things in my mind that I think, boy, you all should be, you should all be thinking, how can I serve Bobby today? Like, what can I do to make Bobby's life better and serve his goals and pursuits? That's what's happening. That's the should in my mind, right? In an ultimate sense. And I think some of you can participate in that. Just replace the name Bobby with yours. My own example of this was working on this lesson. So it was Thursday. I went out to the Apple store at Village Point to drop off my laptop because it wasn't working the way it should. That's ironic. I didn't notice that yet. And then I planned, I'm out west, and there's a coffee shop out there called Stories. It's a cool coffee shop that it's like local, so it's not Starbucks or Scooters, which you can't go in anyway right now. And this one's open, like you can go inside and sit at tables. And so I thought, great, I'll go and study. I looked it up on my phone. Google said it's not busy at this time. It's 2 p.m. So I go to Stories. I walk in the door. Well, first off, I get to the parking lot. The parking lot is packed, not a spot to park. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And there's a dance club next door, so everybody's at dance, I guess, And I get there, and you walk in, packed as could be, every table filled. So I walk around for a minute, try to check, are there any like high stool tables, maybe where there's room or something. And it's not working out. And then right as I'm leaving, there's a girl who's packing up her earbuds, and I'm like, oh, score. I'm the guy who found the table, because there's other people looking for one too. As if the world revolves around me, as if I'm the one who deserves the table. And so I go up to this girl and say, oh, are you leaving? She says, oh, no, I'm just going to the bathroom. It's like, oh, that's not the way it was supposed to work. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is where we'll come to our text in a minute. When I got in my car, there was this really subtle feeling I had inside of, like, God, that's not cool. Like, I've been doing really good today, God. I've been very grateful for your blessings. I don't think I've been that selfish. And I was planning on coming here to study the Bible for my friends, to share in that. And, like, it didn't work out. Like, I thought that's how it's supposed to work. I was doing good, and then I got burned, And then I was really ticked because I was like, I'll just go home. And then I went and sat in a Panera, but it wasn't the same experience, Like, Panera's not the same experience as, like, the cool, hip coffee shop, Like, a different thing. Like, Panera, I'd want to go with a friend, not sit there by myself. So, life just doesn't work out the way you think it should. There's a lesson for you. You're welcome. You guys come for the big lessons. Don't worry, we'll get to some other good lessons for you. So here's a question. Question number 2. How should life work? How should life work? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Because you all have the sense, you really quickly said it doesn't work the way it should. So how do you know that? Maybe it's working out exactly the way it should. Yeah. It should work the way God wills it to work. Yes, it's not our way. Yeah, that thing of like, you all are here to exist for Bobby, right? No! God's like, no, you all exist for me, Yeah, let's...
Well, I'm just thinking on the flip side, if we look at ourselves, we should be holy as he is holy. So, if anything, we're not the ones that are working as we should.
So we should be holy as he is holy, and you say, we're not the ones working as we should. That's interesting. Yeah, there's this perception in that. I think what you're saying is, we have this perception that life's not working for me the way it ought to work. And it's in reverse. God's like saying, no, you're not working the way you're supposed to work. Is that what you're saying, essentially? Yeah, like you're supposed to be like me, but you're being other in a negative sense, right? Yeah.
When I fix something, it should stay fixed.
When you fix something, it should stay fixed. Why should it?
I don't know. Because I don't want futility.
Because you don't want futility. Sorry, dude. You're going to get what you don't want, man. So let's take a look at a few things in our text that the preacher draws our attention to, of how things don't always work the way we think they should. We're actually going to start in verse 11 and 12. So chapter 9, verse 11 and 12. Here are some things that don't work the way that they should, it seems. Ecclesiastes 9:11. Again, I saw that under the sun, so let's pause for a second. Remember what's happening in the book. There's this wise guy, calling him the preacher, teacher, whatever you want to call him, who's making all these observations. He's got his glasses on, and he's, in a wise way, in the fear of God, he's looking around the world, and he's just seeing what's taking place on earth, trying to understand, in everything I see in this 360 panorama of life, can I put it together in a way to understand that should? Or can I put life together in a way that I could live in harmony with it? So here's something that the preacher sees. I saw under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge. But time and chance happen to them all. For man does not know his time, like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. So, here's the sense. Are you fast? Are you a good runner? You should win the race. Are you strong? Are you the stronger nation? You should win the war. That's a should, right? That's just kind of like common sense. The stronger one wins, the faster one wins. If you're wise, intelligent, you have knowledge. So if you have understanding, so you're smart, you should be able to have bread. Like, you should be able to work that out. You should be able to have riches, favor, right? Those are good, commendable things that we think, if I'm smart, then I get bread because I can work. I know how to work out that equation. Or if I'm smart, I can get riches. We think that that's the way it works. You're wise, you get rich. The fool loses his riches, those sorts of things. But that's not always the case, right? The fastest person doesn't always win. Sometimes they trip. Or sometimes somebody just kind of, who's not actually as fast in training at the race, they just turn out like, whoa, what happened to that? Or sometimes a battle or a war or a fight goes in a very unexpected direction. And the preacher says, in his observations of life on earth, time and chance happen to them all. So to all people under the sun, when you're just observing what's happening, now he's not saying something about there's no God, he said there's God plenty of times. But the idea that this wheel, our little wheel of chance, sorry, you might not be able to see over there. Our little wheel of time here, there's times to weep, there's times to kill, time to hate, time for silence, time to speak. Seasons of life, right, where it's good seasons and rough seasons, good seasons and rough seasons, even maybe sometimes neutral feeling seasons. Our experience of this, and if you just observe it in people's lives, it's really hard to say, they did this, and therefore their season of life is this. So you did this, therefore your pet didn't listen to you and do what you thought. You did this, therefore you have chronic illness. You did this, therefore fill in the blank, right? Or on the flip side, you did this, you're this type of a person, therefore you got rich and you got the job promotion. That's a really hard connection to make. Now, we feel like we do that all the time, and I'm not saying that there aren't certain perceptions of that in the world, but in an ultimate sense, to be able to put that equation together is impossible. It is impossible to say, I know what will happen next. And so, for instance, let's create a couple lives for these people up here. So, oh wait, Dave, come on, Dave. Sorry, can you come up here? I forgot I was going to ask you earlier. Dave's really good at creating lives for people and seasons. So we're just going to create the next season. So if you're wise, you would think that the next thing in life would be something that's like positive. And we'll see, maybe that's the case. Maybe Dave will create a good life. Go ahead. So the wise man, embrace. Okay, that's good. So the wise man is going to have a season of embracing next. Okay, let's do the fool next. The fool, you would think, is going to have it rough. Dancing. The fool gets to dance, gets to have a good time. Why is that, Dave? Why'd you do that?
Maybe he likes to make a fool of himself.
Makes so he can make a fool of himself. Yeah, that'd be me dancing. All right, go ahead. The righteous man gets to dance too. Now, okay, so that's kind of twisted, right? So you did a really good job. That's helpful for my lesson. Again, I'm just playing this by chance. So, the fool and the righteous get the same life for a moment, or the same season. That's twisted. See what you got, Dave. For the wicked man, it better be bad. It better be bad. Let him have it. War, that's right. Take that. But who knows? Maybe he'll win, right? All right, that's good, Dave. Thank you. Everybody clap for Dave. Great job. Great job. You should go play the lottery or something like that. I think don't. Bad advice from the front. Do not play the lottery. This is a great example because you don't have any clue what's going to happen. It's just if you think that whole thing, I'm going to be the one to win it. I'm going to be the one to win it. You're a fool. Let's take a look at another part of our text. Verse 2 to the beginning of verse 3. This is very similar. So how should life work? We think that the righteous should be blessed, live and have life, and the wicked should be cursed. But here's something strange, much like Dave illustrated with the fool and the righteous man on the board. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 2. It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to all. And we're going to find out in a second what event he's talking about. He's talking about this event. So, there's very few things in life that you know. But as I've shared this great lesson with you before, there is one thing that you can be very certain of. You're going to die. That's kind of like the main reason why this book of Ecclesiastes exists. This is the conundrum that the preacher is trying to solve is, we're going to die, so what's the point of doing anything? Because, great, you have a season of embracing, but it's just going to be cut off by death. The fool and the righteous, for some reason, get the same thing right here in life, a good thing, but they're both going to die. The wicked gets the war, so maybe he gets stuck to him, but then eventually he's going to die. This is this thing that the preacher's struggling with, that he says the same thing's going to happen both to the righteous and the wicked. Because the way we would say things should work is the righteous should live forever, right? The righteous shouldn't taste the bitter curse of death. And the wicked, boy, the first time you do wickedness, you should be cut off with their head, right? Just like, take them out. They don't deserve to live. That's justice, right? That is justice. Just want to tell you that, like, where the scales are balanced. But right now, we don't see that happening. We don't see that happening. And the preacher's asking these questions. So here's a question number 3 for us. What does death teach us about having any sense of predictability or control in life? So what does death teach us about having a sense of control or predictability in life? Help me out. What's that? That you don't. Okay, you don't what?
You don't get to plot the course of how your life goes.
Okay, so you don't get to plot the course of how your life goes. But I planned this lesson, and I planned to stand up here, and now I'm here. I have conquered the world. Thank you very so help me through this thing.
Right, you planned that, but say, off the top of my head, say the power went out.
Yeah.
You were able to finish the lesson. You didn't predict that. You didn't decide that was going to happen.
So we just need to have a lot, like military guys, you have a lot of backup plans, right? Like, so if this happens, right? But yeah, you're right though, right? Because so many things could happen that this moment would never have occurred, right? We were kind of joking about it before. This is not a funny joke, but it is a little humorous looking back on it, where this time last year we had, I think, this Sunday and next Sunday, and then we canceled Sunday morning and then went online for a while, right, before COVID came. And that's a really, similar, boy, we had all kinds of plans for that Sunday. Well, let's do this. And it wasn't until Saturday that we decided it, because it was all just kind of came so fast. And, we're going to meet on Sunday and do this and this and this and this. And God's just sitting there like, just be careful, be careful. And that's very true with this lesson. Like, don't be too haughty with your thoughts. Any other thoughts on what death teaches us about our sense of control or predictability? Yeah.
God is the one that deals out true justice.
Okay, that's interesting. God is the one who deals out true justice. So explain that.
I mean, you think about in life, on this world, with your examples, the wise man embraces the fool did. It doesn't seem to matter until death. Death is really where what happened in your life has an effect, I guess.
That's interesting. Yeah, so justice happens in a sense at this point. Now, there's certain things that take place back here, but there is a relationship in the scriptures between death and justice. Yeah, so that's another interesting piece of this puzzle, that death and justice have that relationship. Any other thoughts on death and our sense of control? You know, Ecclesiastes, I don't know if you've probably heard a story or two about this. I've heard these stories of people who die while preaching in the pulpit. Like, in a sense, that feels really epic and like, wow, for me, like, I think, man, what a glory, like, preaching the word and I die, like, I just love Jesus to the end, you know. But you think about, like, a bunch of people had to witness that. That's really sour, really bitter. And, you know, I was thinking about Ecclesiastes, like, that would be, what a book to like, living or dying illustration for you. Like, if I just keeled over right now, but that's the case of the book is, the dance, you might plan for the dance, it might not happen because you might just die tomorrow. You don't know when that's coming. And in an ultimate sense, any of your pursuits in life, you don't really ever take hold of them because you're going to die far sooner than you could ever cherish those things. And so the preacher makes this observation that's helpful for us. You don't control the times, and death is the ultimate teacher that you don't control. There's an illusion of control that we have, and the illusion occurs when you kind of shove death off to the side and don't deal with it. You know, I was talking with Sarah the other day about how it's almost a shame that like children aren't more introduced or surrounded by death. Like for myself, I remember maybe going to 2 funerals as a child, and there's like death is this thing like way, you know, over there, like down in Texas or something, like, you know, like, but like so far away I can't even see it. Like, and one day, oh yeah, we'll get to that at some point. And that's where, you know, young people get this illusion of like, I'll live forever, I do whatever I want, you know, kind of this folly. And we're just not surrounded by it enough. And what's ironic is in the church even, we talk about it all the time. We're kind of weird. We talk about death. Like the gospel is about death, both like a death of Jesus, the God-man, and the death of our old man in him. And we got to come to terms with that a little bit more. I think that's what the preacher's trying to get us to think about in order that we would have wisdom. Question number 4. Does the presence of injustice, unpredictability, so like this, that the fool and the righteous have the same life, does the presence of that experience in life mean that there is no God? Or does the fact that you being righteous and wise, there's no guarantees that your life's going to go well, right? Like tomorrow's not necessarily going to go, if you're righteous today, doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be a great day. It might be a rough day tomorrow. Does that mean that there's no God? Let me just like count down and we can all say it together. 1, 2, 3. No. Okay, so why? Because that seems like, boy, that something's going on where who's the one in control of this thing? It feels like this is what God is doing, if there is a God. Any thoughts? Yeah.
God would use injustice as a means for our hearts to turn to him. So if there's justice being met, you know, we can tend to fall into that error of pride. Whereas injustice gives us that the battle or the fight where we have nowhere else to turn except to him.
That's interesting. So give me an example so you said God uses injustice to turn us to him. So give me an example of that.
So I guess somebody is robbing you or murdering someone you love or something like that. Instead of railing against God or something, you would turn to him for strength, for solace, for support. And he gives us that strength.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about, if you read in the scriptures, again, this is what makes Christians really weird. We rejoice in our sufferings. That's weird. Like, people say, you're really dumb for doing that. That's not a good idea. Suffering is bad. You shouldn't rejoice in bad things. And yet we see in our sufferings, we come to know God more. we're drawn closer to him. So part of ourselves is like is that old self is being worn away, yeah.
Examples in the Word where we see that. You see that in the life of Joseph, where, I mean, he's in a pit, and God has a plan, and it's to save the people of Israel. And it looks all along like, he's never going to win. And yet God has a plan.
Yeah.
And he could have, and even in the end, when he could have had vengeance and all these other things, he chooses to believe and trust that God is in control of it all.
The story of Joseph, such a good example, and in so many ways. Just in the immediate, if you were just tracking along with Joseph day by day, and he does this good thing to help some buddies out in prison so they can get out, helps interpret stuff, helps the guys in charge, the ruling governors. As that takes place, you're thinking, dude, God, you going to bless that guy? You going to help him out or something? And Joseph's just in jail. He was sold by his brothers into that situation. I mean, what a messed up life. Like, his brothers should be the ones in jail, and he should be the one, out. And this is the challenge for us, is we see things so near to us. Again, I was righteous today. That means tomorrow should be good. And 3 years from now, but I'm thinking so immediate, right? Like a microwave. I just press some righteousness in and out pops a good life. But the story is there's a much bigger scheme that's working out in life. And God is working for good. You better believe it. Even though at times what you see, that's what I'm saying, the preacher's seeing things on earth. And he's saying, based on what I see, this doesn't fit together. But then he said these few times over and over, but I know that there is a scheme. I think that's kind of intuitive to us. That's the reason why we pursue any goals in life, why we have any motivation. We're like, there's a purpose to us existing, and we're trying to find it. We're trying to find it all the time. And the preacher says, yeah, that's God, in the universe. He has a purpose for all of this. But the helpful thing the preacher is doing for us is saying, the majority of that purpose, that scheme to how everything fits together, is not ours to have, right? And yet, we learn throughout the scriptures of some of those markers of what that purpose is. Question number 5. Why is there such uncertainty in life? Why is there a lack of control? Why is there uncertainty? Why is it that you don't know what will happen to you in the next 5 minutes? Yeah.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that we would not rely on the Lord.
We wouldn't rely on the Lord. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Right? So uncertainty is helpful for us. Yeah. Why else is there such uncertainty? Even uncertainties or perceived why is it that the fool had the same life as the righteous? Yeah.
Sin has infected the world and us, but it's infected everything. So it's a constant, sin's a corruption to good.
Yeah.
And it takes something that's pointed in this direction and turns it to that direction. And with a myriad of things that are interworking that are all corrupted, it creates uncertainty. If there was no sin in the world, everything that, there would be no uncertainty. Zero sin means it may be surprise, but it would never be thinking out loud. I may be going off theologically here. So
Good. Let's get the pastor to fall. See, we didn't even know. John's a hair. No, I'm just. But no, let's hang on. Can you hold that thought? And then I want to dig into that really quick. The sin, if there's no sin, let's ask that question in just a moment. Because I love where you're thinking through that. So yeah, it's interesting. So the preacher draws our attention to this. Verse 3, after he says the same event's going to happen to everybody, he says, kind of in his observations, also the hearts of the children of man are full of evil, and madness is in their hearts when they live, and after that they go to the dead. I think he's grabbing a little bit of what we see that happens in the fall of Adam and Eve, where just this world that was created orderly and good really quickly becomes chaotic and bad. And part of the reason why that unpredictability is maintained in the world is because we foster the madness that is in us, the evil that's in us. Because we don't ever submit to the one who is the ruler in charge, but rather all day long we're trying to take a hold of life and manage it and manipulate it for our ends. And that's where the more of that happens in the world, I would say the more unpredictable it becomes, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And so we kind of foster that. Now, the interesting question, though, like what John brought up, so maybe I'll use the term lack of control. If there's no sin in the world, do you have a lack of control? Or can you control the world do you have control, I guess? That's the question. What would you say to that, John?
Well, I would say that we would be content with God's absolute control. And so we would not perceive it as something that is a dissonance. It would simply be, that's the way it is. God's got this. So we may have delight and surprise and fascination, but it would never feel disconcerting, because without sin, there's just simply perfect trust in the good gifts of God.
So in that sense, so you said we'd be trust in God's control. In that sense, the question of can I control it almost doesn't even exist for us, right? Like when you're just wholly yielded in that sense, you're just, he's got it. And so I'm not trying to control it. So think about, one sec, Jenny. Think about the first sin. The first sin. There's a tree. It's beautiful. It's appealing. Ooh, that can make me wise. That can make me understand life. And I could kind of, the sense of I know good and evil, like I could work things out in the way I want it. And the first sin is trying to take control. Like, I'm going to have that thing. God said I can't have it, but I'm going to have it because that'll be good for me, right? That'll be so good if I can have just a little more control of my life, rather than I have a whole garden that's described as beautiful, delightful, enjoyable, peace. It's called Eden, which is paradise. Instead, though, I need just a little control, right? Like, just a little bit. Oh, sweet. Cool. Yeah, you can just get up and say, see also Sunday school. There's people in the parenting class, so you can preach to them. Sorry, it's just, I know, we've been both thinking in the same spot a lot. Jenny, what were you going to say?
The difference between loving the omniscience of God and fighting against the omniscience of God. I think that in our sinful nature, we want to be God. And so we want that omniscience. We don't want to rest in the fact that he knows all. He's directing everything. I want to be God, my own God.
Yeah, the idea is, like, we don't rest in God's omniscience. Like, he's got it, he's God, because that's the whole first sin is, I could be like God. And there's this sense in our minds where we say, that would be better than the way it is when he's God, which is so twisted, but we all intuitively know it. Like, because when we think about all those things that we talked about at the beginning of how should things go, we say, there's that little feeling, and it's like, boy, if I was in charge. And when we're put in places of power, and we try to work it out to our ends, we're like, oh, it's going to be so good once I get that promotion, and I'm the guy on top, I'm the girl on top. Then the company, the household, the team, whatever it is, boy, then it's going to go good because I know what's best. And whoo, that is folly. That's not going to go good for you. What were you going to say?
So I was just going to, coming off of sin, there's other powers. Satan is out there. Consider Job. What point does Satan have influence and effect in our lives? He has a huge effect.
Yeah, you think about the tree sin, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There's a little snake over here, or maybe a giant snake. I don't know how big it was, but it was a snake. And he's saying, look at that, right? Now, the thing that the Bible will teach us is we're lured away by our own desires, but it's amazing how often we're tempted into thinking, I have control, or I can get it. So I think about the things that lure me. Things like, it's dumb, but insurance policies, I'm like, oh man, we got insurance. Pfft, we're covered. Like, what kind of, I have something called life insurance, which is for when I die. Like, that doesn't mean I'm going to have a good life. That just means my wife will get a bunch of money when I die. Like, Yeah. But I'm lured away when other people, you think about advertising, almost all advertising is trying to convince you you can make your life into the way you want it to be. You can self-actualize, It's just a lie. Just a lie. Yeah, there's other influences, and sometimes we're almost like snakes to one another. We buy into that same lie and kind of lead others into that. So as we go through the book of Ecclesiastes, I hope you notice that, at least in the ultimate sense, so this word that we've been talking about over and over, hevel, that in your translations is often in Ecclesiastes translated as vanity, or if you have NIV, it'd be meaningless, or futility. It's a word that shows up in the book of Ecclesiastes. I think it's 38 times. It's kind of the key term of Ecclesiastes. Life is not meaningless. I don't think that's the best translation. It's interesting what Jenny brought up about us trying to make ourselves gods. If you remember from last week, I shared a couple examples of how that word hevel, a Hebrew word, is used elsewhere. It just basically means smoke or mist or breath. And sometimes outside of the book of Ecclesiastes, it's used to refer to idols, false gods. That's kind of the idea still is like of hevel in the scriptures, or in Ecclesiastes at times, is it's this illusion that we bow down to, like you're worshiping this thing that's not real. You're pursuing this thing that's not real. And so does this mean that life is meaningless, godless, or hopeless? No. The book of Ecclesiastes is not saying that at all. He's just making very real observations for us, like true observations, things that we don't want to talk about often. So let's take a look at a few things. Verse 1, chapter 9, verse 1. All this I laid to heart, examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God, whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. So the sense is this: he's got the whole world in his hands. If you're righteous, you're wise, if you're going to do good, that's in his hands. God's in control. But what's going to come next in your life, what awaits you tomorrow, 5 minutes from now, 3 years from now, you don't know. It's in God's hands, but you don't know. Welcome to the tension of the scriptures that it's just hard for us to wrestle with this. Then he goes on in verse 4 through 6. He who is joined with all the living has hope. It's intriguing. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. So if you're still alive and you're hearing this message, you're going to die. You don't have control. The preacher says, there's hope for you. There's hope for you. There is hope for you for what? That's the interesting question. Is there eternal hope? Yes, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. The sense is, if you can come to terms with this, he's got you in his hands. If you're righteous and wise, even if you're wicked, he's in control. But you don't have control. You don't have control. The living have hope, meaning they have hope for living a good, satisfying life. If you can come to terms with this, accept this reality that God's in control and you're not. The biggest clue to that is you're going to die. He's the one who determines that. Your days are written in a book. You can have a satisfying life. You can actually enjoy life. If you don't come to terms with that, and if you know this and you don't come to terms with it, your life will be miserable. You might not know it. You might try to fight against it. Oh, I'll show God I'm in control. I'll show him he's not even real, whatever it might be. But you're going to be just fighting against reality and truth, and it's going to be miserable. It's going to be taxing. But he says that there is hope. There is hope. And here's what the hope is. Verses 7 through 10. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love in all the days of your hevel, life, fleeting, that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in all your toil which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. So much like last week, the preacher commends joy to us. Joy. So if you come to terms with this reality, you can actually have true joy in life. You can enjoy a meal, enjoy a drink. You should dress for a party, garments white, oil on your head, look good, feel comfortable, enjoy life with the wife whom you love, work hard and enjoy that. It's interesting that the things that the preacher says over and over, this is, I think, the 6th or 7th time that the preacher says this phrase, like, go, have some enjoyment in life. Eat something, enjoy it. Drink something, enjoy it. Find enjoyment in your work. Not in what it might do for you, but in your work. You get to, expend yourself. Find some enjoyment in that. These are very much everyday common experiences. These are just the basics of life, the bread and butter of life. Food, drink, relationships, the way you feel and dress, clothes, and work. So help me to understand this. How is joy the answer to the preacher's search? So why is it that after he has this comprehensive search of everything that's done under the sun, come to terms with, I don't control it, why does he land on joy? And if you want to think a different way too, so I'll let you think 2 ways. Why does he land there? What are some other places he could have landed, right? There's other options, but he says over and over, take delight in life. So either what are some options or why joy? Yeah.
All I can think of is the first question in the Catechism I learned when I was a kid. What is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
Yeah, so Catechism, what's the chief end of man? Glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Heidelberg, right? Is that the Heidelberg Catechism? It's Westminster. Westminster. But yeah, so that's at least something we've been taught a lot, right? Yeah, so maybe there's some answer to that. That's the chief reason you exist, at least according to the Catechism, right? Yeah.
So joy, if we give this up to God, we have that sort of relief. So if we're doing something, some sort of load, and somebody takes over for us, here, let me get that for you. We have the sense of, and so we have that joy because we're not fighting, we're not struggling to make this happen. And then the obstacles hit, and we want to make this happen, and something else comes in our lives. When we give it to God, it's almost a sense of, God's got it, and so we can have that joy because we don't have to struggle.
Yeah, so there's a struggle ends, right? So you think about Christians should be really have really well-trained muscles of release. We're just everything's oh, I want to have that. Okay, fine, God, take that. But my job, no, I need this job. Okay, whatever job you say, okay. But my kids don't listen, but okay, that's yours, right? And the more that you let go of all that strain, you've been trying to make life work for you, just so tense. From that comes relief. And so this is where joy gets a little more colorful. I think of contentment or satisfaction or peace or rest, right? Because within that, then when you sit down to have a meal, you're not stressed about everything under the sun. You're not thinking, what's this meal going to do for me? What's my wife going to do for me? You can actually enjoy her rather than think, well, you don't do what I thought you'd do, so what's wrong with you? But this is the thing we feel. It's we all do this. We're all in this camp, But when you have this release, oh, Lord, you're the one in charge. You're the sovereign. You're the creator. I'm the creation. There's a place for joy there if you accept it. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Joy is something you can't attain if you pursue it on its own. The only way that we get it, because this is God's gift to us, humanity. He created us exclusively for joy in Him. That's the garden, delight. Right? Here, I want you to delight. story of humanity is trying to find joy, but find it without the object of our joy. So the only way you get joy is by pursuing it in the Lord alone.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, this is like, I know your grief sometimes, like, and there's a sense in which, like, if you put, this isn't wrong, but, like, if you just put the word joy, like at Christmas time, you just put joy, period. Now everybody kind of gets it. It's joy in Jesus. Or it might be joy in, like, warm, nostalgic feelings of Christmas time, But, like, it's joy in something, right? Because joy, I'm going to pursue joy today, period. Like, what are you pursuing? I don't even know what you're pursuing. But it comes from things. That's why the examples. You eat something. You drink something, feels good. You have a wife, she's a prize. You think you're like Adam, like, finally, a woman, I needed her so much. Oh my gosh, I really needed her. Like, that's your life. What were you going to say?
The joy set before him, he endured the cross. That's the simple idea that the better plan of God, the fulfillment of all of these things, he endures everything throughout his whole life, and in the end endured the cross, despising the shame. It was the joy set before him.
Yeah, even Jesus, in his suffering, and it is essentially setting aside his control to his Father's control, right? In that he's pursuing the joy too. Like, that's what your Lord's doing. You better join in with him. Like I said, we got through more than half the questions. We're good. But we need to wrap this up. So joy. Now, we're going to see this parallel thing that happens in the book. Sometimes the preacher says, fear God. At the end of the book, he's going to say, fear God and keep his commandments. That's what you should do. But he says over and over, have joy. Joy in food, joy in work. And the interesting thing is, like, are those two different things, or are they more interconnected? Because sometimes we think, like, obedience, that's the right thing to do, and if you get joy, you get it. If you don't get joy, that's all right. That's not the sense of the Scriptures. Obedience, like Jesus, is hunting for satisfaction, pursuing it. Obedience for itself is heartless worship. I'm just going to do what you say with no intent of any joy at the end of it, satisfaction, just because you merely said it. I know this is really hard for us to get because we don't do this. We're trying to enjoy God, glorify him, because we want to see him glorified, which satisfies us. But the idea of Ecclesiastes is essentially like, this is the right response, fear God, and maybe the barometer or the symptoms of a God-fearer is joy. The one who truly fears God is going to be probably the most joyful person you know, because they're not bothered by the world. They're not held back by themselves. Now, they might not be like me, flamboyant, throwing their arms up and down, but they're going to, the most God-fearer who has released everything is going to be the most at peace. And when they sit down for a meal, they're going to enjoy it better than anyone else at the table, because they're not stressed about tomorrow. They're not stressed about what the conversation will be. They're just going to take a bite and enjoy it. When they go home and see their spouse, they're just going to be with them, because they're not thinking about all these other things. They're not going to think their spouse is a means to an end. They're just going to enjoy their spouse. And that leads to this final question where I'll have to wrap this up and we can think through it later. What is the purpose of wisdom? What is the purpose of wisdom? This is a thing I think sometimes we get wrong because of how we read the Proverbs as promises. Sometimes Proverbs aren't promises. And I think Ecclesiastes is a good reminder to us that the Proverbs aren't promises. Do good and it'll be good for you. Depends how you define good. The purpose of wisdom is to keep you on the straight and narrow. If you read Proverbs, read the first 9 chapters. The purpose of wisdom is that you would live and not die. That doesn't mean that the straight and narrow is going to be an easy life, because like we talked about a week ago, you're an alien in the world. You're a stranger here. But there are ditches on both sides of the path that leads to life. And wisdom, fearing God, is what keeps you on this path. And so the purpose of wisdom, of understanding Ecclesiastes, of understanding Job, of understanding the book of Proverbs, everything that's in Christ, the rest of the Bible really, is to keep you there. And that is the path of joy. Because it's a path that's set out before you. It's been tread by Christ. He's walked it, and you're just following. And so as you think through because I know this question has come up for a few people. As you think through this strange book of Ecclesiastes and other wisdom literature, have in mind that this is giving you a conception, an understanding of the universe and everything, not so that you can control it and make a good life for yourself, but so that you can live with God. That's what wisdom is for, to keep you joyfully in Him. And one day, that joy will be turned into sight. That's all we got time for. We'll talk more, but thank you all for your thoughts. Very helpful.